So today I want to talk about motorcycle maintenance, specifically your chain. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up is that every so often I help a friend of mine who owns a motorcycle shop called Hybrid Racing. And we often see these bikes that come in and they're either a new rider or someone that just bought a motorcycle or someone who doesn't really know how to maintain their motorcycle. And the chain is just absolutely filthy and greasy. Now, surprisingly enough, what people don't know this is that a proper, well-maintained chain can actually free up 2 to 3 horsepower. Now, this has been proven on the dyno, and you could go try it for yourself, but it does actually make a difference. Rolling resistance, friction from a chain that's not maintained does have an impact. Furthermore, it also gives you an opportunity to take a look at the chain to see if there's anything that might fail. So what happens is chains sometimes will stretch in some spots and not in others. So if you're trying to roll the chain around, you see the chain might go up and down and start skipping a little bit. That means there's a tight spot. At some point, you should probably think about changing your chain. Now, the easiest thing to do to maintain your chain is to basically lube it. So I want to talk about the products that I use to lube a chain, and it's actually only one product. And it's something that someone showed me, a racer showed me this some time ago, and I've been using it ever since. And simply enough, it is WD-40. Now I know a lot of people who have motorcycles are gonna be like, WD-40, that's not a chain lube. You are absolutely correct. It is not a chain lube. WD stands for water displacement. It's actually more of a cleaner than it is a lubricant, even though it has some lubricating properties. Now, the reason why it's not a good lubricant is because it does not last. But that being said, the rule of thumb that I like to go by, especially of those of you who do a lot of rides, is that I would say on every second ride, depending on how far you go, you want to lube your chain. Some people try to do it every third ride because it can get a little tedious if you just want to spray it every single time. But usually that's the rule of thumb that I used to go by. Is usually every second ride I would just lube the chain. Now, when you're using lubricant, proper chain wax, what ends up happening is it's actually more sticky. It becomes sticky and it picks up dirt, grime, and just different types of particles. And over time, these little particles end up wearing your chain, they end up wearing your sprockets, and at some point you have to change it, which is fine. That's normal maintenance regardless. However, you want to extend the life of your chain, you want to extend the life of your sprockets, you want to keep it clean and lubed all the time. Now, the reason why I prefer WD-40 is because if I'm going to clean or if I'm going to lube the chain every second ride regardless, then it won't matter. By the time the WD-40 wears off, I have to lube it up anyway. And the other thing that it does, it actually makes the chain look good, clean, spotless, and you don't get a lot of residue on your wheel. So one thing that people might notice is when you're using chain wax or chain lube, once you put it on, you apply it, you usually might wipe a little bit of the excess off with a rag, but there still ends up being lube that ends up going on your rear wheel, and then you see it's all the stick and you got to take that stuff off. But that's just the way it is. It's almost unavoidable. Now, it's less of an issue when you're using something like WD-40, just because it's easier to take off, not as noticeable, there's not as much that comes off anyway. So I'll give you an example. If we look here at the bikes that I currently have in front of me, so let's look at this R6. This R6, it was using chain lube. It's fairly clean, the chain's fairly clean, but you'll see what I mean in terms of dirt and grime. So if you get up close, you could see that there's grime on it. Now that chain, regardless, is still fairly clean, believe it or not. But you can see that the grime that's built up on it, and that's because road debris, dirt ends up sticking to the chain lube. Now, my bikes, like I said, I don't use chain lube anymore. I'll use WD-40, and this is what it looks like. So this is my track bike, and you can see that the chain is clean. Okay, now if we move over to the RC, same thing. And actually, this actually needs a lubing. Same, probably all my bikes right now need lubing. Go over to the Ducati. Ducati, I actually rode it the other day, so it might be a little dirty, but cleaner than it would be if I used chain lube. But I got to lube it up with or clean it with the WD-40. So that's my tip for today. Is those you want to keep your chains clean, working properly. Regardless if you want to use WD-40 to clean it, but use it more often than using a chain lube, or if you're going to use a chain lube, make sure you wipe the excess off. Just make sure you do it. Otherwise, what ends up happening is, like one of the customers that recently came in with their bike, their chain failed because of improper care, and the link ended up breaking, where the chain came off and it was an R6, early gen R6, hit the crankcase, split the crankcase, oil debris everywhere. Now they need a new motor. So the more often you lube your chain, you actually can look for these imperfections. You can see if there's any tight spots. You can see if there's any, like if you have a rivet link that might need replacing. It gives you an opportunity also to examine your chain. These are wonderful machines. Okay, these are wonderful machines. However, if you don't treat them right, they're not going to treat you right, and you risk crashing, injury, whatever. So maintain your bike. It'll cost you less in the long run, and be safe. Cheers.